maybe.
We are thrilled to be here.
Thrilled to have you.
How fun is this
Yeah.
to get another chance to talk with you, leading edge humans who seem to know what you're doing in this reality? You seem to have it all together. You seem like you have no issues whatsoever. Like everything's just working out wonderfully for you. It's like every moment and every second of every instant of every day, everything just flows to you, works out easily. You see everything in perfectly the same as your inner self. You're in perfect alignment. Your perspective is high. You are going through your day beep-bipping around. Everything works out for you. Everything's coming to you. There's no need to stress over anything. No fear even pops up for you. You're just enjoying the scenery and having a good time and seeing where it goes. You have full faith that you'll get everything you need when you need it. And the life is just gleeful and blissful and pure ecstasy and joy.
Yeah, that's me exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Very good. And how did you come to this realization? How did you go from where you were before to where you are now, where you just exist in pure joy in every moment?
A lot of your teachings.
Yeah. Listening to Joshua.
Well, what did we teach you, though? What did you listen to that actually made you transition from one focus to another type of focus?
That all we are, all we ever have to be is a limitless being of pure positive love and acceptance.
Yes, but are you able to do that in every moment of every day, always?
Gets better with practice.
And
Yeah.
how do you practice that?
Manifestation events.
That's one way to do it, sure.
And falling out of it.
Falling in and out of alignment.
Feeling good.
Understanding that when you're in alignment, you're just having the same perspective as you would have if you were your authentic self, living in physical reality as who you really are, and being guided by love. Those moments, most of the time, you're in alignment. Everything's going well. You may not notice how well everything's going, but you might find yourself sitting in the garden, eating pizza, having a beer. How wonderful is that? How could that be any better? Listening to your friends, talking with people all over the world about stuff that you think is fun and interesting. That moment is an aligned moment because you are focused on your reality exactly the same way that your inner self is focused. And then you'll come along and you'll have a desire and something will catch your attention. You'll just get distracted from that perception or that perspective, and then you'll feel fear because it's your notification that you've just suddenly bopped out of alignment. And so all you have to do is bop in alignment. Now, the big story here is how do you get that recognition? How do you move from this mostly maintaining a focus in fear to mostly maintaining a focus in love? How do you move from below the line, or a approach to life that is generally one of control, which tends to be one that's generally below the line, to a new approach to life of allowing, which tends to be the one that's more focused on what you want and is less based on having control and more based on just allowing life to unfold? You do that by going inside yourself. You see, as you emerged into this reality, you were captivated by the conditions that existed in your outside world. You didn't really separate the two when you were very young. You lived inside and outside. And as you got a little bit older, the outside started captivating your attention. You became better at using your senses to identify and judge things, and you birth desires, and the way you were taught to keep those desires going or to manifest those desires was to control the conditions. You controlled your behavior. You tried to control the behaviors of others. You expressed your opinions. You wanted other people to share your opinions. You tried to control how they perceived their reality so that you could feel good. And as you did this and got more and more involved in reality, you stepped outside of yourself and you focused on the conditions. And then you allow the conditions to either cause you to feel good or to cause you to feel bad. You use some things as an excuse to feel good and some things as an excuse to feel bad. Right? Is everyone with us so far on our story?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So now, as you become aware that there is another approach to life, that there is the approach to life that you really came in here with, the approach of allowing, the approach of bipping along, the approach of letting everything be good as it is, the approach of allowing your true desires to unfold magically, you are going from primarily being focused on the conditions that exist in the outside world to understanding how your reality is created from the inside world, to realizing that the outside conditions are a mirror to how you're feeling on the inside world. Therefore, you are paying more attention to how you feel. And as you are practicing feeling good, you start noticing how your reality changes. And you build this momentum away from fear, away from controlling the conditions, away from being in a lower emotional state of being, away from not caring how you feel, away from thinking that feeling bad was just part of life and natural, and sometimes you felt good or bad, to primarily focusing on feeling good and primarily focusing on things you like and doing everything so that you can feel good about it and perceiving everything in a way that feels good to you. So, moving from fear to love is simply moving from focusing on the outside conditions and control to relaxing and feeling good on the inside, from allowing the conditions to cause how you feel to causing the conditions to represent how you feel. Can you see this shift that's happening? This easy way to remove your attention from the conditions and the outside world and the people that cause you grief and towards all the things that you enjoy, and deciding that I want to feel a certain way, and therefore I'm going to feel it first, and I'm going to get comfortable with that feeling and allow that feeling to influence my vibration and add it to my vibration, while simultaneously removing the fear from my vibration so that there's less of a wobble in the vibration and that you can get what you really want, what you truly want. Which really, if you think about it, what you truly want are all those things you intended prior to your birth. You truly want love. You truly want to express your love. You want freedom and abundance and happiness and joy and interest and passion and excitement and all the stuff that goes with reality. You don't necessarily want a new car, a new house, money in the bank, that sort of things. Those things are side effects of all the stuff you truly want. But if you're trying to control the conditions by achieving those things just so you'll feel secure, worthy, whatever, then you're just going about it in a backwards way. And so, if you can take your attention from all the rules of the game that you thought you knew, from the old approach to life, and now focus on how reality actually works, and you can start to see a glimpse of things turning around, and a glimpse of stuff getting better and better and better, well then, you just shifted your momentum from the old approach to the new approach, and soon you will get so interested in the new approach to life that the old approach will seem like a dream, will seem like, what was even going on back then? That didn't make any sense. You'll start to see clearly, because what you're doing, you're moving from fear, which is the illusion of danger, to love, which is the clarity of reality, because it is aligned with how your inner self is perceiving your reality. And since your inner self can't perceive fear, your inner self always sees the true reality. And since your inner self knows what you truly want, your inner self is always focused on the path towards what you want. So, The key to life then is maintaining that perspective that your inner self has. And when you dip into fear, notice that the fear is irrational, the fear makes no sense, and that you can go back to being who you truly are, and go back to feeling good, and go back to allowing. And never mind anything else. Never mind all the little stuff, because the little stuff, well, that was just part of the old approach to life. The little stuff that never mattered, that you always made so important. I have to be on time, I have to dress properly, I have to have my hair done this way, I have to say nice things, I have to behave, I have to not do this and not do this and not do this and not do this in order to be perceived as a good person. Well, now you can relax that a bit and focus on what you do like to do instead of controlling how your persona comes off to other people. And we are sorry that we've taken up all the time with this lengthy introduction. But does anyone have anything to add to that?
Well, I've been reading through Laurel's messages because somehow I missed all those. And one of the things that resonated with me and what you're talking about right now is when you base your truth on something outside yourself, there's always going to be conflict. And I feel like for so many years, I was looking out for how can you fix me? How can you help me? What have you got for me? Versus going within. So I really am enjoying the ability now to just quiet myself and go within and get an understanding or a focus or a direction, and then moving forward from there.
That is excellently said. The truth of who you really are is found within. The truth of who you are being is found in the conditions. The truth of your vibration is found in the conditions because that's simply a mirror to how you're being. Your vibration, all that is a signal. It signals to the universe how you're being. You can be anything you want. If you want to be fearful and send out a fearful signal, then you will, luckily, by coincidence, receive back this outer reality that reflects the life of a fearful person. That's how you know what your vibration is doing. Without that feedback, you wouldn't know. So if you are engaged in loving, fulfilling, happy relationships with others, then that's your vibration. And you can create whatever vibration you want. And if you knew what you intended prior to coming in, well, then you would create a vibration that matched that. If you didn't know what you intended prior to coming in, then all you had to do is feel good, and it would naturally unfold because that's your birthright, your natural set point, or all those intentions that came in. And even your more specific ones you could find. Because as you allowed yourself to be in love, allowed yourself to float freely and care freely down the path, as you allowed to float down the river easily without worrying about any rocks that were in your way, just moving around them, well then your specific intentions would naturally unfold in an easy way. The only reason anyone thinks their specific intentions are difficult, like the intention to experience abundance, well, they choose to do it through poverty first and then they experience abundance later, is because they think the trajectory of their life is wrong, that the setup part is wrong, that all the stuff that happened to get you to this point was wrong, was painful, didn't come as it should have been easier, should have been different than it was. But if you realize that everything happened absolutely perfectly to get you where you are now, then now you can look back on that and thank it and then move forward in joy through whatever you feel like experiencing now. And if you just feel good, well, then you will experience what you intended to experience, which the vast majority of that were these wonderful things like joy and passion, freedom, abundance, love, acceptance, limitlessness, things like that.
Stuff.
Good stuff.
Yeah. I had another, on that same kind of line, I had another kind of revelation this morning as far as society and being, pushed into how we should be and what a good girl is and all of this. And, basically it was a sense of, you never want to be taken advantage of. In my family, you grew up, you showed your dominance and superiority basically through judgment. And now to totally back away from that and realize that there's no judgment. I'm simply allowing and accepting. There's nothing I have to be ashamed of. There's nothing they have to be ashamed of. Everybody is equal, yet we all try to pigeonhole and put people into categories. She's pretty, she's smart, he's dumb, he's an idiot. We try to categorize where I practiced this Saturday night with a group of people where I would just like accepted everyone and allowed everybody to be how they are. Maybe, some were judging them to be a jerk, some were judging them to be crazy, but just to try and stay in that is just like the most freeing, and that's where I get my true love. That's where my love is. If I can stay in that moment of allowing and accepting everyone in that moment, that's bliss.
Well, that's when you
That's
step
awesome.
into your true power because you are allowing fear to fade away. When you remove fear, as Laurel had says, that space where the fear was is taken up by love.
Right.
And by fearing anything, that space where love could be is taken up by fear. Now, that space comes and goes with how you're feeling in a moment, but the more you think about it, the more you're aware of it, the more that you know that when you feel fear, you've just pushed away love, and when you feel love, you've just allowed fear to ease away, then that is a wonderful approach to life. And we will say that that all societies are all based in fear. Now, in history, there might have been a time when there was a reason to be fearful. But in today's society, there is no reason to be fearful. There is no reason for you to have to act differently than you are, for you to judge someone, for you to worry about someone. Because you know that in your reality that you're safe. You know that you can only attract that which you're a match to. You know that everyone who comes to you is for you. As you practice this more often, you're going to see this play out. You're going to understand that this is always the case. And even if you come across an ornery person, that person is just mirroring how you're feeling in the moment. And that's just feedback, right? And so you can never really be taken advantage of. Now, 1,000 years ago, if you were traveling through the woods, you're full of fear of bandits or animals or whatever, and you resonate with that fear, and then you attract the thing you don't want. In this reality, you are safe. You are aware that you're safe. That those people who want to experience anything like being taken advantage of, they get to choose to experience that. You do not have to experience that. It is not part of your journey. You don't have to make it part of your journey. You don't have to worry about it. You can leave it to others. You don't have to think anything's bad. You just leave it to the experience of others.
Right. And who's to say what is being taken advantage of anyways?
Who's to say what being annoying is? Who's to say what being crazy is? Who's to say what being boring is?
Right.
It's all an opinion based in fear. Without the fear, you can't have that opinion.
Right.
We were talking the other day with someone, and we were talking about this idea that if you were left alone with anyone you are even acquainted with, without fear, say on a deserted island or something, you would, within a very short amount of time, come to love that person and accept them for who they are and appreciate them. And it would be just natural for you to love them. And so you see this happening with things like the Stockholm Syndrome, where prisoners and their captors become attached. Because it's just natural for them to love. And even though there's fear there, they still become attached to each other. Because you cannot be around somebody for a long period of time without the love coming out of you. It's just not possible. The same is true with rescued animals. When they are shown a bit of love, they turn completely around. It's just a natural part of this environment. All beings are beings in love. The fear is the interesting part of the game. And it's the fun part of the game. It's the reason you go on roller coasters. The fear is to see if you can work it out and get to what you want and push through the fear and have the exhilaration of pushing through fear. Fear is the fun part of physical reality. You do not get to experience this in the non-physical. You can remember it, but you really will not know what it is all about.
Well, where did we get judgment from? Like, how did that come about, and why are we still using it? I mean, it doesn't seem to benefit, so...
Judgment is all based in fear. Judgment is part of the survival instinct, so it's natural. You judge if that stick is a snake or not, because you were told through people who were worried about snakes, or people who were worried about spiders, or people who were worried about falling off cliffs. They taught their children, and they taught their children, and they taught their children, and the biological imperative came through in the genetics, and the explanation of what there is to fear expanded, and as people expanded in their consciousness, there were more things to fear. There's more possibilities of perceived danger. There's more awareness of things that are unwanted through technology. You can instantly see if a building catches on fire, or if people die in a fire, or if people die in a mudslide, or whatever that's happening all over the world with the 7 billion people, and you think, oh my, that could happen to me. Oh my, how unfortunate for them. Oh my, all this stuff is going on. So this just expands what is safe. Is this person being safe? If even their behavior is a little bit off, is there something wrong with them? Is there something I have to be worried about? Always worrying about being safe because there are so many perceived dangers. But what's rational? What's irrational? What are the odds of dying in a plane crash? Extremely rare. What's the fear in flying on an airplane? Extremely low. Because the fear of crashing in an airplane is irrational. If you have that fear of crashing in an airplane, then you have a fear of taking a bath, because the odds of dying in a bathtub are about the same. Or of walking across the street, or of riding a bike, or of driving your car. Right? So you can't be limited by fear. There's certain fears that you have to push through. But some fears are going to stop you at some point. And those are the fears that are unique to you, and you can push through them. And some people have a habit of pushing through fear, and some people have a habit of being limited by fear. And those who tend to have greater experiences of life are those people who tend to be able to push through fear or have more confidence. Confidence is just another word for saying they have this ability to push through fear. They believe in themselves. Those who are insecure have less of ability to push through fear because they do not believe in themselves. They do not believe that the outcome is going to be beneficial or worth the effort, or that the downside could be more than they can bear. But truly, what's the downside of being limited by irrational fear? The downside is not experiencing what the potential is to experience. It's living a limited life. So in order to live this expanded idea of life, you want to push through the boundaries of fear as much as you can, more and more and more. And as you do that, you build confidence, or you build faith in your ability to push through fear, or you have this trust that anything that comes to you that you're inspired to do, and you push through that fear that will always pop up, you get to experience this thing that's for you. And you get to move one step closer to where you want to be. And you will understand that you can manifest anything you want as long as you keep pushing through these fears. And you can understand that you will be limited to the extent you do not push through fear. So it is completely up to you. And as we say, as we have always said, since Laurel brought it up just the other day, the fear that is contained within you takes up the space of the love that could be contained within you. And you just...
Hey, Joshua.
Yes.
One thing I've noticed about when we judge others, lots of times it's something like, let's say I was brought up to behave, and my parents made sure I behaved. And
why did they make you behave? What was the whole point of that?
Well, let's say to control me, and because if I'm not behaving, then they look bad and things like that.
So it's all based in fear. Their idea to control you. Why did you behave?
Because I thought I would get love. I thought I would get love if I behaved.
So you were manipulating them, they were manipulating you, and it's a game of manipulation.
Yeah.
And you feared that if you did not behave, you would not receive the love.
Exactly, yeah. And then, so I play the game. I grow up. I get older, and then, so then I'm a good boy, and I'm 30, and I'm 30 years old, and 35 and 40. I'm a good boy, and then I see others who aren't behaving, and I secretly resent them. So I judge them. So I see it a
Yes.
lot. Like when we judge others, is something that we're holding back within ourselves.
You see something that you admire in someone else. You know that you can't do that, and so you judge them
Yeah.
as wrong because you can't be wrong.
Mhm.
Because your
Yeah.
persona does not allow you to be wrong. Your ego does not allow the persona to be wrong. The persona has gotten you where you are in your life. You have lived this far. Somehow you're doing a good enough job that you're still alive, and the ego's defending that, does not want that to change. So you either change that persona so that you can be more like the person you admire, or you make them wrong.
Right.
Now knowing what you know, knowing that that persona is a limited version of who you are and it limits your experience of life, when you see someone you admire, someone who is outrageous and fun and energetic and says silly things and behaves in a silly way and does things that you wish you could do but can't do because you can't bring yourself to being that person, when you behave just a little bit like them and see that nothing outrageous is happening to you, and that
Yeah.
you don't have to rely on the feedback of others anyway, because that doesn't matter. They can only perceive you through their perception of how they're viewing reality based on their limiting beliefs about themselves and their persona and all that anyway. Then you can do it little by little by little, and pretty soon
Yeah.
you're being more and more and more of who you really are, and then you're feeling that expanse of something happen to you. You're changing. You're feeling powerful. And that feeling of power is love energy. You're stepping into your authenticity, and you will feel this difference in you. You will feel bigger, expanded, that you can do anything. You will now get inspiration to do bigger things. You will now feel so much more alive and feel like you have so much more control over your reality. Because in essence, you have 1,000,000% control of your reality, thinking that you only have 1% control of your reality. You are, like
And that,
Laurel had said,
yeah.
a giant who thinks he's an ant.
Mm.
And then we can learn. So from that point of view, we can look at what we're judging, and we can learn. Well, what are we holding back inside of us, and what can we do? How can we practice what you just said, as far as practicing being more of what we're holding back inside of us?
We do not create new reality. We have no ability to create new reality. No one else can create new reality. But if we could, we would give you a tap on the head with our magic wand. And you would be instantly transformed to the authentic version of yourself, who you really are living in physical reality. Yet, all we can do is influence you. And so as we use our words, and they chip away at these limiting beliefs, as you are empowered by beneficial beliefs, you make this change to your vibration, slowly, over time, little by little by little. But when you really do something in your physical experience, when you have the physical experience of the action, that makes a huge difference to your belief system. And that makes a huge difference to your vibration. And so when you actually experiment with some of these ideas in your own life, and you try them out for size, and you see the results of your actions, and you can modify your beliefs because now you have first-hand experience. Do you realize that the vast majority of your beliefs are adopted from others without any first-hand experience whatsoever?
Mm.
You just take it on their word. You just do what they were told you to do. It's just a habit.
Yeah.
If you will understand that the vast majority of your beliefs that are limiting in any way, and even some of your beneficial beliefs are limiting, are adopted simply because others said words, but not through your personal actions. Gary was listening to Gary has come to this understanding that the education that he received was mostly based in half-truths and all-out lies. And that while everything was fine with that, and it was a wonderful experience, that none of it was really true. So he had all these limiting beliefs that were passed down by others, and was watching a TV show about Custer's last stand at Little Bighorn. And he had always imagined it as this army of soldiers against this army of Indians, and that it was some kind of normal exchange, and surprisingly the Indians outnumbered or outmaneuvered or outgunned the soldiers. And even in this television show, they didn't really go into that. But in another podcast, he heard them talking about Custer being warned by his scouts that the encampment of Indians was 10,000 strong. And he went in there with 200 men and got annihilated, as anyone would. But yet, Gary's perception of this event was completely clouded by inaccuracies that were told for a reason, and told to present something in a way that wasn't necessarily true. And whether either of these stories is true or not, the idea is that without this first-hand experience, you do not really know the truth of anything for yourself until you experience it for yourself. And so to hold an idea as this, or this belief that is a fact, is holding on to a limiting belief. When you take any belief that you have with a grain of salt and allow your belief system to be completely malleable, then you can move into your experience of life and use those experiences of what you prefer and what you've actually done to create your vibration. Because your vibration is heavily influenced by your beliefs. Your thoughts you think are heavily influenced by the beliefs. The judgments that you have are dictated by your set of beliefs. But when you realize that those beliefs are mostly adopted from someone else with no experience and just taking their word for it, then you can say that these beliefs are not really necessary, and I can choose to believe those things that are empowering. And if this judgment is based on some belief that I have of some situation that someone told me about, well, it doesn't necessarily apply to me, and I can actually form an opinion from scratch right here and now. And I choose to form an opinion based in love and not one based in fear, just because other people were worried about me or themselves or whatever. The only reason your parents were ever worried about you behaving in a certain way is because they wanted to feel good. And they were not able to feel good if they were feeling fear. And so they wanted to restrict you from doing anything that caused them to feel fear. Whether that was pursuing a career that you wanted to do compared to one that they thought was safe, or going out with a person that they approved of, or getting the grades they approved of, all these things were based in fear. And so they wanted to have themselves feel better by controlling how you acted. And even that idea is accepted in your society as a reasonable idea.
Yeah.
You should control your kids. They should not be out of control. There are dangers for them. But of course, those concerns are clouded in this idea that you're looking out for their best interests, which we know is not exactly the whole story.
Yeah.
So when you judge someone, all you're really doing is judging yourself.
Do you think we'll ever be able to get to a point where we're not going to have to judge, like us physical beings, or are we just supposed to use it as a tool?
You are getting closer and closer and closer every moment. You are as close as you've ever been. There's more people rethinking this idea of judgment altogether. Unfortunately, in most religions, this idea of judgment was added to the religion. It wasn't part of the basis of the religion. It was added to it. So that a lot of people think that judgment is a godly thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? But you're getting closer and closer to understanding that that is not necessary, that that is not part of it, that people are here to explore what they're here to explore, and that has nothing to do with you.
Okay.
And it's all based in fear. And there is no judgment in the non-physical because there is no fear in the non-physical. Doesn't that make sense? How could there be judgment without fear? It would be impossible. So as humans move from fear to love, they move away from judgment and towards acceptance. Yeah.
Right. Well, how do we stop ourselves from feeling guilty then when we're judging somebody? Because it feels so natural.
Because you're judging yourself when you feel guilty.
Oh.
Yeah. So you can understand that you are perfect as you are. You cannot get better than you are. And so to be less judgmental doesn't make you any better. It just makes you different than you are. It just makes you more aligned with what you want.
Right. Okay.
It doesn't make you better. Being a person who is living their authentic self while living in physical reality is not better than one living in total fear. It is just a different experience of life, and it's one that you probably prefer. And we're showing you how to get to where you prefer. Not saying that anything you ever do is ever wrong or bad, ever. So you can go ahead and judge all you want. It's just not what you prefer. And if you have this awareness, no, that's not what I prefer. I'm going to change my idea on that. I'm going to change my habit of that. I'm going to start slowly by slowly accepting a little bit more outside the norms of what's acceptable. I'm going to allow people to be how they're being. And you know what's going to happen when that happens? You're going to start judging yourself less, and you're going to start coming across people who elicit fear within you. Because the only reason you could judge someone or yourself is from fear. And if there's no fear present, then there's no judgment present. And if you're not bumping up against people who bring out fear in you, then you're not judging. And if you're not judging, you're not bumping up against people who bring out fear in you. And if you feel fear and if you judge, then you can say, this is not what I prefer. I prefer to live without judgment. Because when I live without judgment, then there's no one who comes into my experience that I need to judge, because I am not fearful of anything. Without fear, you live in complete love. And in that love, there's nothing to fear.
And I think Wendy just described what you described earlier, Wendy, when you described going to a party and practicing that. That's a perfect practice of not judging. And you know, you probably weren't perfect that night.
No.
Yeah. But as you were saying, it's a good practice, and you enjoyed it though.
Yeah. And I caught myself judging, and I was like, okay, wait a minute. What is my fear here? And kind of went through the process and then worked through it. So yeah, I'm trying to look at more and more everything that pops up. Like Joshua says, I look at it being for me, and like with curiosity. Oh, what does this have for me? What does this have? Oh, what can I get out of this? And to just try to move a step further.
So if you encounter someone annoying, how's it for you?
Oh, my first reaction is to be, oh my God, why doesn't he just shut up? Everybody's just ruining it for everybody, blah, blah, blah. And so now I try to look at it as more like I do with this group. Because like when we were on the cruise, I mean, in my eyes, nobody could do anything wrong. So what was different? Well, nothing was different. I was the only thing that was different. So if I could take that perspective in my day-to-day life, then just accepting everybody for who they are, where they are, what their path is. I don't know, but you know what? Good for you.
but why do they cross your path in the first place?
Oh,
how does someone annoying enter your path?
There was something there for me.
Yeah.
A judgment on myself. And yes,
Right.
That's very true. Because sometimes I feel like I'm loud and I'm too big, I'm too much.
Exactly.
And so I shrink back down. And so
Right.
this guy was kind of being big and large. And
Right.
yeah.
And and as Mark said, there's something in that idea of being boisterous and loud and taking up space that you like. Not the way that he's doing it per se,
Right.
but there's something about that whole idea of not being shy, of
Right.
being outgoing, of being able to talk to anyone and being who you are as you are with this group, with all other groups.
Yes, because that's part of my allowing and my accepting and helping people to be seen and heard. I need to be in that role to a degree to fulfill my purpose.
Yeah.
You want to be in that role to
I
fulfill
want
your
to be-
purpose.
Yeah,
Yes.
I want to be in that role.
And you are getting practice here and now with this group. And as you practice with this group, you see how easily accepted you are, as you are, no matter what you say or do. You cannot say or do anything wrong in this group. And as you have this confidence that you cannot say or do anything wrong in this group, you bring forth non-physical inspiration, and it comes out of your mouth. It flows easily. There's no miscommunication, no guffaws, no regrets when you look back or you hear this back later. You are happy with how you presented yourself because you are in alignment with who you really are in this time. Because there is no fear here, and when there is no fear, the love energy takes that space. And with that, you can feel good and flow all the good things you want. When you second guess yourself, you add a little fear into your vibration. And so the communication that comes forth from the non-physical has a little mix-up in it. And sometimes it comes out great, and sometimes there's a little wobble in there. But the main thing is that you enjoy yourself. So did you enjoy yourself this evening where you were consciously looking to accept?
Yeah, and I even allowed Tom to be Tom, and it was like,
and
okay,
think about the people around you. If they can be who they are around you, isn't that a wonderful thing?
Yeah. Yeah, and then Tom had some insecurities pop up, which was really interesting, and he lashed out at me for like, why did you point that out, kind of a thing, and I was like, okay.
I'm here to point that out.
Yeah, well, and before I would have been like, oh my God, I'm sorry, okay, how can we fix it, kind of thing, and then I was just driving, and I was thinking to myself, wow, I created that. That was a good manifestation event that I just gave him. Yay me,
So
totally opposite.
It's impossible to say or do anything wrong.
Right.
Because it's just the judgment of that action based on whether it causes fear in another or not. And if it causes fear in another, well, that's a manifestation event for them. If it causes fear in you, well, that's a manifestation event for you. It's a message. You get to look at it and deal with it, and instead of suppressing it or making it wrong like you once did and adding to the fear, you process it and you move on. It makes so much sense from this perspective.
If you don't think about it.
Excellent. Good. Who else would like to share something? Anything. Could be on any topic in the world. Has anyone read a good book? Watched a good movie?
Good TV show, Sense8. If you guys haven't watched that on Netflix, check it out. Okay. You've just got a lot of energy today, okay?
There is definitely no need to defend yourself.
That's right.
Well, I was reading a book since you have asked, which was "Don't Follow Your Passion." That's bad advice. Most people don't know what their passion is anyway. Just work. What was the central idea? The work was you will learn to love what you're good at. So just work hard at becoming good at whatever you're doing. And then you will start to attract external stuff. There was something in the message which worked for me. There was something in the message which really didn't. And so I'm a bit confused about...
We love that idea.
Okay.
When you find yourself in something, you can find anything you need in that thing. So if you find yourself in the job that you have, you were led step by step to that job. In that job, you can spend your time looking at what you don't like about it or what you do like about it. You can focus in fear and worry that you aren't doing a good job, that you're not contributing, that you could get fired, all these things, that you're not getting enough money, that people don't respect you, all these things. Or you could say that everything that I want to experience in life, all the nuances of physical reality that I intended to come here and explore, can be found in this place where I find myself. It is no coincidence I am here. It is no coincidence that people are here now. Now that I'm here in this space, I can make this space whatever I want it to be. I can use my powers of creation to transform this into the idea of the perfect space that I have in my head. As I go along, feeling good, focusing on what I enjoy, what I like, what I want to see happen, because I want it to be better and better and bigger than it is now. I ignore anything that might be perceived as judgment or wrong or something unpleasant, whatever. Ignore all that. That is all for them, not for me. I am focused on what I do like. And what I do like, however tiny those aspects are, however minuscule percentage they make up of the entire environment, I'm going to diligently focus on this tiny little aspect and make it bigger and make it bigger and make it bigger and ignore everything else and realize everything else is coming is for me and lets me know where I am, and I'm going to grow it and grow it and grow it and put more love into it, get it bigger, get better at it, find things that are interesting about it, keep going at it, and then allow it to change. And from this complete transformation of focusing on the fear aspects of this environment that I found myself in, where I wanted to quit, where I thought I shouldn't be here, where I was worried about getting fired, to pouring my focus onto these small aspects of this thing that I generally didn't like before to what I like now, and just focusing on that and just making that better and bigger and brighter. If I can do that, then that will grow and it will transform into this environment that I love. And whether that means you'll be actually transforming it, where new people will come in, where new energy will come in, where new opportunities will come in, where a new position might arise that you will fill, or where you will be sucked away from there because the easier path is in a place that already exists like that. You don't know where it's going to lead, but the focus on the intense focus on the positive aspects of where you are now, without saying, oh, I should be finding a passion, that this isn't my passion. Well, if you don't have that ability to focus on these core things that you like, then it's not going to matter what your passion is anyway, because when you get in a passion, you can be still focused on things you don't like about your passion. Right? So, and you can allow this whole thing to evolve, whole thing to get better.
I think one of the central tenets of the message was there are going to be moments when it's going to be uncomfortable, and I read this in another book too. It was like, continue moving towards the fears, continue working through the fears. Don't stay comfortable. As soon as you stay comfortable, start working towards looking for more stuff to make you uncomfortable, because you'll grow.
Did we write this book? Seems brilliant. We agree with every statement there.
Brilliant.
Don't shy away from the fear.
Hear.
If you shy away from the fear, then the fear has limited you. If you move towards the fear, peel off the fear, keep moving through the fear, find new fear, new challenges, new things to go through. Not from a challenging fear because fear is bad, but from a moving towards inspired action, because inspired action will lead you where you want to go. And as you get more and more inspiration, you will face different fears. You might say that those fears are intense, but those fears are only intense from this perspective where you are now. By the time you get to the fear, it'll be as intense as any other fear. There will be no more. That's why it's no good to see too far into the future. Because the version of you that will exist when you achieve your goals, or your dreams, or your desires, is an expanded version of you that's ready to handle the fears that pop up. Imagine that we say that you're going to be the prime minister of whatever country you live in, and you look forward and you say, well, I wouldn't want to do that, I wouldn't want to do that, and then you cut yourself off from any of that. But by the time you get inspired to run for office, you will be facing whatever fears there. And then by the time you are inspired to run for president, you'll be facing the fears at that level, which will be no more different than the fears you face at this level, because as the expanded version of you, you're capable of handling different fear. Yeah. So imagine you're a child and you look up at the most scary roller coaster you've ever seen. Well, you can't even imagine doing that because you've never even experienced a roller coaster. You want to start with the little kiddie one, and from there you get to the next one. You don't go straight to the top fear because you have expanded through experience. So, what is fearful for you now might have been fearful for you a year ago. And that just means that you are still limited by the same sorts of fears. If you find yourself progressing into new areas, well, then you will have new fears, and it's the never-ending process of expansion is moving through fear. Yeah. But the fears you'll face in the future are no different. We would say that a lot of people are limited by fear, and they are shy away from the fear, and all the fear is, the only thing that there is that the fear is negative emotion. There are no other consequences of what you fear in your profession. If you get reprimanded, that's negative emotion. If you lose a deal, that's negative emotion. If you don't hit a quota, that's negative emotion. There's no ramifications. If you get fired, there's no ramifications. It's just negative emotion. You say, well, my abundance was linked to this job. And we say, no, your belief that your abundance was linked to the job, but the abundance had nothing to do with the job. You would be living this abundance no matter what you were doing. It doesn't matter. Yeah, because you expect a certain level of lifestyle. And the reason you have that job is because you think that job affords you that lifestyle that you have. It's the other way around. The expectation of the lifestyle that you desire led you to the abundance provided for by that job. Before you had the job, you weren't attached to that abundance. When you got the abundance, now all of a sudden you're attached to the job. Right? Sort of a catch-22 there.
Yeah, which explains why I've been looking at this whole minimalism theory of just powering down, cutting the ties from things.
Because then you don't need to be attached to the job, right?
Yep.
If you have no need for lots of money coming in, then lots of money can come in without you being worried about it or attached to it.
But there's no need for it, so.
Yeah. But
there's also diminished fear at that level.
There's always
which
fear,
is great.
and you just have to resolve the fear.
Yep. What I'm hearing you saying, and I find it rather exciting and very new, is go towards the fear. Go into it. Embrace it. It's great.
Embrace it and look at the downside of the fear. The downside is you might feel a little negative emotion. And the only possible reason you could ever do that is because you chose a perspective that was fear-based or seemed to give out this illusion of danger. Yeah.
And there's an art to going through life and looking at our fears. It doesn't have to be chaotic and fearful while we're doing it, and it doesn't mean we jump haphazardly into fear and go through life. There's an art to it and there's a practice, and the better we get at it, the more we learn to process our fears and look at them and deal with them, and then kind of move into action first. Go inside and deal with it, and then go on the outside. It doesn't have to be just jumping into it.
So the desire.
One of the biggest things Go ahead.
I
was going to say, one of the biggest things I've gotten out of my conversation with you guys is just the idea that the negative emotion doesn't have to be a bad thing. Exactly what everybody's talking about here, that it's just simply an alert. And so I've been practicing sort of getting to a point where I can find the beauty in the discomfort, or at least see what's there for me, and that makes it sort of feel worth it. And now in certain situations, I take some joy in it almost, because I know that it means that something big, like I'm about to burst into a new version of myself. So it's almost fun. Yeah. It's like, it feels like a game, which is what this is, right? Disneyland.
Yeah.
And if you look at the fear itself, it is the fear of being out of alignment is all it is. The fear of that negative emotion. So if you say, negative emotion is no big deal. I don't mind negative emotion. Wow. Negative emotion is fine. I can understand that the only reason I feel negative emotion is because I'm facing a fear. And if I move through the fear doing what I'm inspired to do, then the only possible ramification of that would be negative in any way would be I'd enter a manifestation event. Great, I just entered a manifestation event, which allows me to process another fear. But more often than not, when you push through a fear, you'll feel exhilaration as something wonderful unfolds.
And the more I hear you guys say it, and the more I see it or like hear it from other sources, and the more I like practice that whole idea that it's just not a big deal, the more in the moment when I feel the negative emotion, I think of you because I have that sort of feeling, like the way that you like laugh at us or like giggle, like we're so cute, you know, with our little negative emotions. Like while I'm feeling the negative emotion, I'm also feeling that way about myself. Like, I don't know. It's
so you're taking the inner perspective. Mm-hmm. Or the greater perspective,
the higher perspective, and the
higher perspective
at the same time. Yeah. So
you're integrating your new way.
The desire will inspire you to action. The thought of that action can be done two ways. Can be done from the higher perspective or from a limited perspective. The thought of getting on an airplane and flying across the country can be thought of, this is awesome, I get to go across the country, see a new place, or what happens if the plane crashes? So you say, well, I know it's unlikely the plane's going to crash. And if it does crash, well, then I just get to experience physical reality in a new incarnation at another time. But if it doesn't crash, I get to experience this other land, this other environment. And I can know that there are thousands and thousands of people in the air right now, and that they are all making their way to their destination, and that they are all guided by their inspiration as well, and that when they go through and act on their inspiration, then good things happen. And it's highly unlikely that a plane full of people will all want to die at the same time. Therefore, I feel confident in pushing through this little fear and going on towards that thing. And that's a rational fear. Imagine doing the same thing with wanting to say something in public, wanting to speak to somebody. That's an irrational fear, and there is no danger of dying in a plane crash on those things. You can crash and burn figuratively, but not literally.
Okay, Joshua, I have a question about this fear. This is Nikki.
Hi, Nikki.
Hi. So I think my greatest fear is around my son and something happening to him. And I don't live it daily, but his birthday's coming up and he wants a motorcycle. And I've written to you about this. So he wants a motorcycle and like he doesn't have it yet, so I'm okay right now. But when I am terrified, like I feel sick when I think about, and I often go to the worst scenario with that. So how can I calm myself down before he gets the motorcycle? And then when he has it.
So let's start from this basic understanding of reality, which isn't going to help you, but that you do not create your son's reality.
Yeah.
You can influence his reality. So you can influence him to the fear of motorcycles. Or you can influence him to the fact that his reality is going to take shape based on what he desires. Right?
Can you say that again?
His reality is going to take shape based on what he desires.
Okay.
Okay. So,
yeah.
If he has more desire than fear, he'll be fine. If he has more fear than desire, he'll be limited.
Yeah.
All you can do is influence that. Right? You can't control him because in 5 more years, he can just go get a motorcycle. It won't matter.
Yeah.
Right? You can only control him for so long. All you're
Mm-hmm.
really doing is controlling your own fear.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think he will be fine, but what I'm saying is that I think I'm going to have a heart attack before he gets out of the garden with his motorcycle.
And then when he comes back, you'll feel good again. You'll feel relief. And then when he goes, you'll feel
through all that torture.
Yeah, when he goes off again, you'll feel a little anxious. And when he comes back, you'll feel relief. And when he goes off again, you'll feel anxious. And then one day he'll go off and you won't know it. And you'll feel fine.
This is it.
And then he'll come back and you go...
That's it.
Yeah, and he'll come back and you'll say, oh, I didn't even know you left on your motorcycle. I missed that whole 3 hours of feeling anxious. I'm going to feel...
That's so true. I already went through that because I remember when he was 6 and he was in the forest and I was freaking out. And now he's gone for hours. I have no idea where he is and I'm totally not in fear.
If he was living in India, if you were living in India and you were spending your whole life with the whole family on one moped, You wouldn't give it another thought. There's a billion people all riding around on little motorcycles, and you can't even
Right.
begin to live your life that way, worrying about that. You just have things
Yeah.
to do. So isn't it nice that you have this wonderful life where you get to be worried about things like this? And that's
Yeah.
your choice. So what he's here to explore will be what he's here to explore. What you're here to
Yeah.
explore is being an allower, living life from the state of trust and faith, and then learning to manage your fears, knowing that there's nothing you can do about it anyway.
This is it. And I think that I was hoping you would give me the secret so that I could avoid that initial
We did give you
motorcycle
the
ride
secret.
that was going to scare me.
We did give you the secret because after this conversation, you will be scared less.
Yeah.
It might be 1% less, but it'll be less. Right? And next, when he arrives, it'll be 1% less, 1% less, 1% less, and when he's 50, he won't even care anymore. It'll be
You're
down
right.
to 2%. Yep.
Yeah.
Nikki, we'll have to talk about this too, because when my son was 15, he got a motorcycle, same kind of thing. But I worked through that to the point where when he graduated, we got him a Ducati. So
Okay, I don't even know what that is, but
It's
it's
a-
probably bigger.
Just a-
yeah, it's a super fast,
Yeah.
high performance. Steve picked it out. So
Badass motorcycle.
Now, here's another thing to think. How old is he now?
Is that Wendy or Nikki?
yeah.
Nikki, how old is he now, Nikki?
He's going to be 17 next week.
Okay. So, would you rather him have the practice of getting used to a bike and learning on a bike while he's a little bit younger, or wanting a bike, never being allowed to have it, wanting it, and then getting it when he's 21 or 22 or wherever he gets it, without having any of this practice ahead of time?
Yeah.
So now he has
Yeah,
a lot
well,
of
that- yeah,
practice. He's gonna
Yeah.
he's gonna get comfortable with it. He's gonna get confident with it. He's gonna be free with it, and then he'll make a decision. And he may make a decision to abandon it. It may be just an idea, or he may develop a passion, and it may be the purpose, and he might find something out of this,
Okay.
like be a professional motorcycle racer.
Don't say that.
We don't know. It could be. We don't know.
Playing with little plastic.
He might be
bikes.
another Evil Knievel.
He's
He
been
could be
playing
a
with wheels since he was 3.
And so that's how you know that this is part of his path. This is the obvious thing. There's no avoiding it, no escaping it. You get to practice processing fear with something important, rather than other people practice fear with things that are unimportant.
So how is this for me?
How is him driving a motorcycle for you?
Yeah.
Well, it's his reality. He chose you, knowing that you and his father would create this environment where he could pursue what he's here to pursue, that would allow him to birth these desires for these things. And as you held off on allowing him to do this, his desires grew and grew and grew. And he knew at some point that you would find us, figure out how to process your fear, and allow him to do what he's passionate about doing. Now, your whole deal, as you can see, is about processing fears. Learning to be comfortable with things like this. Learning to be comfortable with the little fears that are nothing compared to this. Once you're able to process this fear, everything else is going to be easy.
I think so.
You've already done a remarkable job in that.
Yeah.
And your life has changed as a result of that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
So all this is preparing you for that. And then all that will move you somewhere else. Yep. Would you like us to tell you the future?
Yes.
Yes,
We don't know
please.
what it is. We have no idea.
It's good,
Because
though. I'm sure
if
it's
you
good.
knew the future, you would create a different future. Because you would do different things that would lead to a different future. You wouldn't do the things you're going to do. You'd have this idea of what the future looks like, and you move in that direction, rather than what you're actually going to do. So, all we can do is show you a higher perspective of what the present is, or what the past is, or what the future holds as a potential. We are so helpful.
Oh,
You are. You are.
Excellent. What else do we have out there? Isabella. Isabel,
Yes.
talk to us.
So I think I'm going through, Kate, you could probably relate to this, security issues around finance. And it was funny because Gary said, security is also based in fear. And I'm like, really? Security is based in fear?
Yeah.
But then I got an image from my inner self, and she was showing, and I love it because this is so me, but she was showing me money equals a pacifier. Like it was just security. And I said to her, well, listen, this is kind of big for me, and I really like that pacifier. So do you think I could just hold it? I won't use it?
Would you allow your daughter to walk around with her pacifier?
Yes.
You let her take it to school and keep it in her mouth the whole time?
Yes.
I did. I know.
Would you do it now? How old is she now?
13.
Would that seem a little out of place for a 13-year-old? Would having security, the need for security, be a little out of place for a leading-edge creator such as yourself?
I know, but it's so hard.
Excellent. So what you say is, it's not so hard, it's just so much fear. So, are you not going to get on the airplane?
No.
You're still going to get on the airplane. How are you going to get on the airplane? You're going to process your fear. So, what is keeping that airplane aloft anyway? What is that? It's unseen. You can't see what it is. You just have to believe that something's keeping it aloft. Okay, and you can say, oh, well, there's a law of aerodynamics keeping it aloft. Well, there's a law of the universe keeping you safe and secure. It's not you having a little bit of scratch together a little bit of money and put it in a bank. That's not security. It's that abundance is your birthright. That you allow the abundance to the exact level of your lifestyle right now, which happens to be in the top 5% of all humans in the world, in the top 1% of the history of the world, maybe the top 1/millionth of 1% of the history of the world. And of all the beings alive in the world, it's the most extravagant lifestyle that you can imagine. Who's got it better than you? The owl that sits outside your window, or you in your cozy house? You are understanding the abundance that the humans have created and birthed over generations of living in relative hardship. And now you live in a life of luxury that people couldn't even imagine 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. You're saying an average person can live like this? Can have access to these tools, these devices, this way of communicating, this method of travel, these luxury items? It's unbelievable. And you think it's because you went to what school and you did what, got a job? No.
I know.
It's because you expect a certain standard of living, that you will not accept anything less than that. And nothing could pry you away from the standard of living. However, you don't accept anything more because you have this fear that you could lose something. Well, you can't lose anything. As Laurel, again, brilliantly said, you are either a vibrational match to what you have, or you're not a match to what you have. You don't own your house, you don't own your car, you don't own your relationship. You just happen to be a match for them now, and you can be in a match for anything you want. And so, wouldn't you prefer to manage your vibrations so that you can be a match to more and more and more, rather than holding on to this idea that this little tiny bits of paper in a bank account somewhere mean anything? We say blow it. Blow all that money, go down to a Joshua cruise, make it rain.
I know.
Who cares?
Like, you got to save for a rainy day. It's been drilled into my head.
Well, you chose that childhood. You chose those ridiculous beliefs. Have you ever had a rainy day?
No, because I'm
You've
provided
never had a
for
rainy
100%.
in all these years. You've never had one rainy day,
Yes, I've had rainy days.
right? Did you always also have the ability to handle the rainy day, no matter what? Was the umbrella always there every single time without fail? Was there ever a rainy day that you didn't have an umbrella? And that umbrella is the money that you saved. Fantastic, good job. A loan, a gift, someone you could lean on, something you could sell, whatever it was.
Okay.
Right? So what is the thing that you have to fix? We're dying to know.
So I would like to fix my porch.
Okay, and because if you don't fix the porch, you're going to die.
No,
So it's not a problem.
it's not.
You would prefer something else. What would you prefer?
I don't know. I guess prefer paying my bills.
No. As far as the porch goes, compared to the one that you have now, what would you prefer that porch to be?
Oh, because it's leaking. Because my porch is leaking.
Oh, there's a leak. How did we know
Yeah.
that? So there's a leak in your porch, and you would prefer what? A leak
Leak-free.
free porch, right? A leak-free
Right.
porch. Okay, great. So why don't you have a leak-free porch right now? This instant, today. Why isn't there one there today?
I can't buy the materials.
Why not?
I don't have the funds.
You have no access to any funds whatsoever. It's impossible.
I do have access.
Where is
to
this
some
access?
funds.
Where's the access?
Well, it's my retirement.
Yes. Excellent. So that's one place where you have the access to. Give me another place.
I have a small amount in a savings.
2 spots. Give us another spot.
And we want the account numbers too, if you don't mind.
Okay. I don't know. I guess I could go for a loan.
3 sources of abundance. Do you want to go for 4?
Gotcha. You could borrow.
From
Family and friends.
4 sources of abundance. But yet you say source number 1 is not a good source. I limit myself to not having that source. Source number 2
Right.
is not a good source. I limit myself for not having that source. Source number 3. Now, what happens when you borrow the money for it? You get what you want, and what happens? What else happens?
Well, you repay the loan.
You repay the loan, and where does this money come to repay the loan?
From source.
From source. That's where all the money comes for everything. Now, the only problem is if you believe that source won't come in abundance to pay this extra bill that you have every month because you think that source only covers, we'll say, $4,700 a month and won't give you $4,800, right? Only source will give you $4,700 because source is handling the accounts of 7 billion people on this planet,
Right.
but can't give you another $100, right? Or whatever it is, And now, won't you feel better about yourself to be living in a house with a leak-free porch? Or how do you feel about yourself living with this leaky porch? Isn't your perception of your own reality going to be much more enhanced as you live as this abundant person who's able to handle this leak-free porch? Handle this process of transforming the porch into something wanted? Yes.
Yeah.
So you push through this fear, push through this limitation, get the money by hook, crook, or any way it comes, allow it to be given to you, and lo and behold, you say, I'm going to create an environment around a leak-free porch, and I'm going to go to the first step. So what's the first step?
I'm gonna look at materials and I'm gonna see how I can withdraw some money.
Okay, and materials. When you look at materials, what does that mean? Does that mean that you're going to buy the materials and get on the roof and fix it yourself?
Well, I have a husband for that. Aren't I lucky?
Okay, and so find out what the materials are, find out about getting a credit card, blah, 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 blah. Have someone come over and take a look at it just to give you a second opinion. Have a couple people come over and give you estimates for how much it'll cost to have someone else do it professionally. Have an idea of what pulling a permits imply and all that stuff to have it done right. Not skimping on anything any way down the line. Not setting yourself up for failure ever just because you're trying to pinch pennies. Because you have this fear of abundance or this fear of this ability to receive the abundance that you require. You see? You can do this perfectly knowing if you were living in a mansion and you were on the ocean and this was a $45 million estate and one of your staff noticed a leak in the porch, what do you think would happen?
They'd fix it.
Who would fix it?
They would get a contractor and they would just fix it.
Would they even tell you about this?
No.
No. It wouldn't even come into your vision. You know why? Because as someone who is worthy enough to manifest a $45 million oceanfront estate, you have other things you're interested in doing. You don't give things like this a second of your time because they are not important. You are primarily concerned with maintaining a beautiful environment in which to live and to living the life you deserve. And so you don't notice that things like this are happening. You have systems in place to take care of it because you are so worthy that you know that just by focusing on what you prefer out of life, what you're passionate about, what you're interested in, what gives you a thrill, then the abundance flows in to pay for whatever's needed because you wouldn't live any less, just like you don't live any less than you do now. Someone who lives a $45 million estate will not live any less than that unless they choose to. Yep. Unless they change their opinion of something, like a stock market crash or a divorce. Or something else that rocks their confidence in themselves. Yeah. So you want to build your confidence in yourself, build your faith in abundance, build your faith in your ability to manifest whatever you want, and manifest the hell out of it. And don't say that sources of abundance are not appropriate. Because if you don't need any more money, source doesn't need to bring it to you. But if you have this lifestyle that requires a hell of a lot of money, then somehow, as long as you're feeling abundant and worthy and happy and enjoying it and focused on what you like, it's going to flow because you're going to get the inspiration or someone around you is going to be fed the inspiration to allow the floodgates of abundance to flow. And abundance doesn't have to be money. It can be, everything is abundance. Air, water, food, freedom, relationships, love, acceptance, that sort of thing. Or you can have an abundance of fear, too. So we won't cut that out. You can have whatever you want. Yep.
Yep. How do you know if you're not filling in the grid, though?
You are moving towards what you prefer. You are receiving an inspiration. The inspiration is, well, let's just check out the price of materials. Let's just get a bid on this. Let's just see what we're dealing with here.
Okay.
If you're living in fear, you're saying, there's nothing we can do. We are victims here. Right? So are you a victim or are you the creator of your reality? Can you move towards what you prefer? If you don't like the color of your walls, well, how did that happen? Well, something happened that changed you to a new vibration, and now you are ready for a different environment. And so you receive the inspiration to paint the walls. It's not filling in your grid, it's following inspiration. You're not saying that the walls are horrible. You're not saying that the leaky roof is horrible. You're just saying, I prefer this. I'm looking forward to this. I want to go towards that. I can have anything I want. I can create anything I want. Everything that will come that I want will come to me when I need it. I am an abundant person, and there's no reason for me to live life with a leaky roof. That is not part of my reality. I did not choose this. I choose a leak-free roof.
Okay.
Please send us a report on your roof at your earliest convenience. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to fix?
I do.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Good. What would you like to
Okay.
fix?
What was it? Did somebody else start?
Is it Kyla?
Yes, I did start to talk. I thought somebody else did too. So I'm in the process of trying to accept my son has had this recurring sty on his eye. And I mean, it's happened on both eyes and it just goes away and then it comes right back. And I realized that a similar thing happening with my dog, that it was at this point where every time I was looking at him, my eyes went straight to that. That's what my focus and attention was on. And I realized that it wasn't even necessarily him that I was feeling bad for, but that it was just like a reminder, like a sign to me and to other people as I was subconsciously perceiving it that I'm a bad mom or whatever. Like, it's all bullshit and I know. But so I'm trying to figure out how to accept it and not feel like it needs to be fixed, because that's a whole other thing. He hates the warm compresses. He resists it, because I'm trying to fix a problem. He is resistant to it. And so I have to I don't know, it feels like I'm mauling him if I'm trying to address it in the way it's supposed to be addressed. So
why is it supposed to be addressed that way? It's supposed to be addressed because you have this belief that you should fix symptoms. The symptom is a sign of resistance.
I know.
Thank God it's there. Thank God it's not a broken leg. Would you prefer a broken leg to a little sty in the eye? It's obvious to you. It's supposed to capture his attention. He is at that age where things aren't really going to capture his attention. So here's something that's capturing your attention, and by you trying to fix it, it captures his attention. So he's going through resistance. Well, that's his resistance. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
You can sort of ease it, but can you really? There's nothing too much you can do. As soon as the fear's gone, whatever that fear is, the style will be gone because there's no need for the symptom anymore. There's no need for the message. So something that I came across that I heard about from Gary, he said that he always looks up metaphysical cause of fill in the blank, just as something to know, kind of like a horoscope or whatever. But so I did that for eye size just to see what the possible root of it could be. And it said suppressed fear and anger, which totally makes sense, being a 3-year-old, feeling like you have zero control over your surroundings, constantly going back and forth between mom and dad. And there's certain influences and So repressed fear and anger, thinking things should be different than they are. And can you help him with that?
I can love him. I did that yesterday. Father's Day. I went over there and he was in fear towards me, or it could have been perceived that way. He was just in fear, but he was acting it. He was aiming it in my direction, and anger, expressing fear, I guess, as anger towards me. And I just let him be that, just let him be where he was and kept letting him know that I loved him in different ways. And he eventually came around. So,
and he's birthing desires out of these things too, out of all these little things. And when he's a little bit older, you'll be able to talk to him. Yeah. And that now, he doesn't really understand what you're saying.
Right.
But you can show him by physical contact that he's safe and there's nothing to fear.
Here's another thing, though. So the doctor says, which it was really interesting.
Doctor? You didn't go to a doctor, did you?
I went for the well check.
I went for being silly. We're being silly.
Yeah, I know. But I had called and talked to the doctor. That was the thing. I had called leading up to it and talked to doctors and nurses, and they'd all said it's not a big deal. It happens to a lot of little kids. They grow out of it, blah, blah, blah. And then I go in probably because I had all this fear about it. I go into this doctor's appointment with a doctor who's he's usually very natural minded, sort of a more holistic approach within that same framework, but all of a sudden it was, your son has allergies. He needs to be on Claritin every single day. You need to be doing nasal spray twice a day, blah, blah, blah. And so we had a discussion about it. And so he said, okay, for now, try compresses 5 times a day, and then I just don't even know.
Yeah, and then you can try I have Newt. That might help. Or when his fear goes away, the message of the fear will go away too.
Okay, so I don't know. I want to find a way to influence him to allow the compresses. That's
Why?
just me wanting to fix the problem.
Yeah. Why?
Because then I will feel better. Then I'll feel like I'm doing my
better?
job as a mom.
Just feel better. Just feel better.
Because my mom persona is still really strong. Really, really strong.
Excellent. So you can see that you are amazing at dealing with irrational fear.
Yeah.
And so for you to practice this even more, it has to hit closer to home.
Yeah, that makes
Because
sense.
when he's at his father's, you could care less about the sty on his eye.
Right.
Doesn't
Right.
doesn't cause you any fear at all. It's only when he's in your presence do you have to face this fear. It's like when he comes back from his father's, or when he comes back on his motorcycle, then you say, "Oh, now I have something to fear."
Right.
But the whole time he was gone.
Yeah. That's a really good point, that it has to be closer to home for me, because generally, like, even still, like, vibrationally, like, my mood is still pretty elevated in talking about this, but I feel the fear in my body. Like, it used to overtake all of me, but, like, my back is tensed up right now talking about this. Like, I feel the physical, like, pain is what I perceve it as.
So how do you,
that presence?
How do you get up the courage to get on the airplane?
To get on the airplane?
What do you say to yourself?
I'm love. Love is all I am. I can pretend to be fear for a little bit, but like, or I can just wrap it up in love and make it go away, because I know that he's going to be fine ultimately. He's going to be fine ultimately. I know that I'm an amazing mother. And even if people are judging me as being a bad mother because my kid has this sore on his eye, then that's okay too. They don't know. And I don't know. Everybody has different standards for what's a good mother and a bad mother. There is no wrong. I don't know.
That's all you have to do. And their judgment is based on their fear, and I can understand their fear. I'd be fearful too. I don't, want this to happen to my kid.
And I can only perceive myself as being judged that way if I have a fear that's a match to that. So if I just get so confident on the fact that, like, I'm a great mom, somebody could say something, it would be like them calling me a bad ballerina.
Bad ballerina.
Which is something you said to me like a year ago, and I'm still like,
Yeah. And you get to face more of these fears, and as you become more confident in your powers in all areas of your life, but as a mother, then there's going to be other things that will come up, and you'll deal with them, and you'll get more and more confident, because your desire is to be a wonderful mother.
Right.
And this is how you learn how to be a wonderful mother. You don't just naturally become a wonderful mother. If you have a desire to be a wonderful mother, you're coming to know how wonderful you are as a mother. Right. And as a mother, what's the best thing you can do as the most powerful mother in the world, as the best mother?
Love and accept him as he is.
And get out of his way.
Yeah, get out of his way. It does feel like I'm just like keeping them from death. And like
that's all you need to do, is keep them from death to a certain extent, within reason. Yeah. Until they turn 17. Then relinquish them out into the fields.
That feels hard. It's hard. I feel like, the motorcycle is like my next level, like 10 levels.
Well, there'll be a bicycle, and there'll be skateboards, and there'll be sports, and there'll be...
We introduced this. Yeah.
Trips, field trips.
Field trips, and fist fights. And
girlfriends.
Much scarier.
Drugs.
Much scarier.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Excellent. Well, we can see that we've just changed the world. And it's apparent that now, as we were talking in the beginning, you had gone from this state of focusing on conditions that existed outside of you to this understanding how, when you go inside, you learn to talk to yourself, you learn to get yourself on that plane, that everything that appears in your reality is from the inside, that everything that comes to you is for you, that now life is so easy. So just go on with your day, go on with your week, live an expansive life, have a lot of fun, and until next time, we are complete.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.